What is an era? If we look it up on Google, the results tell us that an era is a period of history with a particular feature or characteristic. Everything in life has multiple eras, with things that were unique for its time. An example I can personally give is like for wrestling. When people say the golden era was when Hulk Hogan and Macho Man were around, and then say the Attitude Era was when people like Stone Cold Steve Austin or The Rock were the biggest guys around. Again, everything in life has multiple eras, and basketball is no exception. In this video, I want to talk about just one era of basketball. Now, this is going to be a difficult topic for me, and not because of all the research I have to do, or look at all the top players at the time, and what the landscape looked like at that time. It's because this era hasn't happened yet. Now, when it comes to this new era idea, here are my criterias for it. This new era must include rising teams that were never really known to be a good team or weren't really a top tier team in the past couple years. They could have been a six seeded team or something like a seventh or eighth, but were never really the true favorites to win the NBA championship. There must also be rising stars that will lead this new generation as the top guys. We also need a change in what I'll call the hierarchy in the NBA. Basically, that means different teams are at the top, while the ones that were at the top every year are declining and becoming either a play-in team or a lottery team. After all that, I will determine if this new era will be successful or not. So, without further ado, let's get started with the first criteria. This new era definitely checks this first one off when it comes to rising teams. In the East, you have the Orlando Magic, who, as of recording, are tied for the third seed, and have amazing talent like Paulo and Franz, who have been leading this team to what will possibly be a very entertaining playoff run this year. And the team they're tied with that also fits this narrative is the New York Knicks, who have once again leveled up this year with Jalen Brunson basically being the captain of this team and has had amazing performance after amazing performance. And with the additions of OG, Precious, and DiVincenzo, the rise of McBride, Harnstein, and Josh Hart, who was always good, but I feel like he really stepped up this year. And I know Randall is gone for the Knicks for the rest of the season, but I feel like him being injured will not slow this team down. Instead, I see the New York Knicks as a potential Eastern Conference Finals contenders for this year's playoffs. Speaking of contenders in the East, we also have the Cavaliers that look like they're ready to redeem themselves after their embarrassing exit in last year's playoffs. And the last team for the East is the Indiana Pacers, who have Tyrese Halliburton that has become an incredible point guard and arguably one of the best players in the league right now. Now, of course, it's not just the East that has rising teams, we also have the West. And in the West, we have, of course, the two obvious ones being the Timberwolves, who are currently tied for the first seed, and OKC, who are the third seed right now. Both teams are looking incredible and have definitely exceeded people's expectations on how well they were going to do this season. As for the next team, we have the New Orleans Pelicans, who are also fighting for a seed right now, and that being the sixth seed. The Pelicans, after a lot of situations that was happening with this team, seem to have figured it all out this season and look like the amazing team that we all thought they could be. Now, yes, I know Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson are a bit hurt right now. Both have been dealing with injuries getting closer to the end of the season, but I feel like that's not really a big deal for the Pelicans just because once they, get all healed up and once the playoffs come around, I feel like the Pelicans will get it all situated and will honestly be fine and be a very, we'll say, a very huge threat to some of these teams because I really feel like the Pelicans heading into the playoffs are 100% a dark horse team. And the last team I'll mention is the Dallas Mavericks. The Mavericks have finally found a player to put alongside Luka to help the Dallas Mavericks hopefully win a chip. And that player they chose was Kyrie Irving. And who would have thought these two would make as a great duo? I honestly believe people forgot how good Kyrie is because of the things that happened on his previous teams. So this season, people got to see again why he's considered one of the best. And of course, my glorious king, Luka, showed why I said he's a top 3 player in the league right now, putting up so many amazing performances that I would have to dedicate a whole video for it. He's doing so great right now that he is in MVP conversations for this season and arguably should be the one that wins the trophy this year. The Mavs have a chance to upset a lot of teams in this year's playoffs, and I can't wait to witness that. Now, let's move on to our next criteria. This one would honestly take forever to talk about just because I feel like there are so many players I believe fit this. So I'll just say this. Yes, this era has rising stars with the likes of Tyrese Halliburton, as I mentioned earlier, Tyrese Maxey, SGA, Anthony Edwards, Alperen Sengun, Jalen Green, Paulo Banchero, Scotty Barnes, Sean Moran, Zion Williamson, just to name a few. Now, on to the next criteria. When it comes to this one, I do believe we are seeing a change in who are considered the best teams and who are considered the worst. With perfect examples being the Lakers and Warriors. Both teams, especially the Warriors, have been known to be great teams with great players that always made the playoffs, at least almost every year, and would be NBA Finals contenders. But unfortunately, those players that helped make these teams so dominant are becoming old and are just no longer in their prime. Then there's teams like the Celtics who were always a good team, but are now, without a doubt, the best team in the NBA right now. And of course, you have the rising teams too, as I mentioned earlier, that are taking spots away from the previous dominant teams. So I think I can say with certainty that there is indeed a change in hierarchy, and there will be more changes to come definitely in the next couple of years, especially once we see teams like the Spurs and Victor Wembanyama start getting things together. Now there's just one more thing that needs to be discussed about this new era. Now, after looking into all of this, seeing that there is indeed rising stars and rising teams for this new era, it is now time to determine if this new era will succeed. And what I'm saying is, will NBA fans look at this era and say, "Oh, this was a really good era," and they'll praise it and say it was definitely one of the best eras in the NBA? Or will they despise this era and wish that it never happened? Now, to give a short answer to this question, yes, I do believe this era will be a success. We're in a time where every single draft has at least 10 players that go on to become one of the best players in the league, whether it's right away or somewhere later in their career. We're seeing so many different styles played and new ways for the game to be fun and entertaining. How could you not be excited for the future? As already mentioned before, we have a once-in-a-generation player, aka Victor Wembanyama, that is closing in on his rookie year and might go down as one of the best rookie seasons ever. And every year, we're seeing the NBA make changes to the game to, improve it. And one of the changes that the NBA has been talking about is helping make rules that make the defense a big part of the game again, because that has definitely been something that has been lost in this modern era of the NBA. Overall, when it comes to this new era, I believe we have nothing to worry about. And as for all of you watching, I would recommend not to hate on the changes coming to the NBA if that is you, but to instead embrace this new era and just enjoy it because I have a feeling it will not disappoint. And with that, that is the end of this video. So I hope you all enjoyed it and found this idea very interesting. It was a fun idea to explore and think about when it comes to this new era, just because I've been telling my friends all the time that I feel like we are heading into a new era for the NBA. Now, if this new era doesn't happen, that's completely fine. I'm not in charge of the NBA. I don't look in the NBA like every single day looking at all the statistics and stats or whatever. So, if this idea of mine doesn't actually come to life, that's completely fine. But I would, love to hear your guys in the comments and what you think about this new era. Do you agree with some of the stuff I said, or do you have other ideas in mind of how it could be a success, or if you feel like this era will not? And just let me know overall what you're excited for in the future of the NBA and, all this cool stuff that's happening. So make sure to give this video a like, share it with others, obviously subscribe if you like my content and you haven't subscribed already. And as always, I am your host, Jeremy. This is the What's Next on Basketball YouTube channel, and I am signing off for the day. Have a great day, everybody.